If you're just calling somebody and they're selling you a life insurance policy without actually setting up a meeting, you should, as I've said, run for the hills. Okay? You just light a fire under your little behind and you just take off a running because you should be alarmed. And those of you that are not doing all of your due diligence, it's hard for me to feel sorry for you because of the position that you're in if you've gotten the wrong policy. You didn't do your due diligence. You didn't ask your agent all the questions. You didn't meet with John or myself. You just decided, hey, I want to meet with somebody local because they're local. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. All right, let's talk about the scammers. Oh, have I been seeing stuff lately? So I want to share. So let's start with, and somebody actually commented on one of my Facebook posts about how she's been hearing about this and somebody is starting a life insurance company. And I was like, oh, wow, that's in Missouri. This is I saw she was in Missouri. So I don't know if this was Missouri or not, but so I shouldn't throw names of states out there if I don't know. But she saw this, and I had another client that called me about this. So I want to share it because obviously if I've seen it a couple of times, that means that it's making its rounds. So one of the big things that I've seen recently is that there are people that are like, oh, I'm going to start a life insurance company. And we're going to get all of you to put money into starting this company. And then you're going to get shares of the company, AKA the dividends, right? And it all sounds fantastic and wonderful. Well, I had a client that actually called me and they had a quote. They were like ready to go. And I said, well, the person quoted them what the life insurance was going to be, but it wasn't an illustration. They couldn't see how much premium was going to be there. They couldn't really see cash value. They just gave them like some numbers on a piece of paper. He actually wrote numbers on a piece of paper on this pre-filled form. He had like a form with blank lines in the spots he needed it, and he filled that in. And I'm like, but eventually you're going to pay more premium than there is death benefit. So number one, that doesn't make sense to me. Because that's not how whole life goes, right? You don't put more premium in than you get death benefit. That's not a good policy. You may as well go buy a CD or go buy rental properties or something. Number two, he was saying that said on the form that when you die, the death benefit, some of the death benefit gets paid out right away, and then some of it is over a period of 7 years. And I was like, whoa, 7 years? Like who has 7 years to wait for death benefit? That's crazy. But think about it. How can a new company pay for death benefit right away? They're new. They have to capitalize that company. That an insurance company takes 13 to 15 years of putting your money to work for them to pay that claim. 13 to 15 years. So now we've got this new company that's got to be capitalized. We got to put that money to work. A lot of times I've also seen, because in the state of North Dakota, we had one of these. Our old insurance commissioner was a part of this. Two things happened in the state of North Dakota. One, they were selling universal products. They weren't selling whole life. It was universal life. And two, that company got sold to a bigger company. And that is exactly what my insured said, is that my client said that this person said, oh, when we get big enough, we're just going to sell to a bigger company. So you're in the startup phases, which you think is going to stay local and this is going to be awesome. But then they get sold out and then they change what? Everything? Can they change your dividend structure? Do they go from a mutual company to a stock company and you've put money in this? Is there some kind of buyout? What does that all look like? The other thing that really got me is the guy that was trying to sell it to them said two really slimy things. One, oh, all your neighbors have already signed up. So I'm ornery enough, y'all know, that I would call all my neighbors and I'd be like, oh, did so-and-so come by and did you guys sign up for that? Here is the problem. Neighbors don't speak to one another about finances, and they know that. So of course they're going to play that game. And then number two, They said, well, we got to think about it. And he said, okay, I'll go out to the driveway and wait for you to think about it. I'll give you a few minutes before I come back in. Guess who would not get back in my house? Yeah, that guy. I have the nicest clients in the world. So, of course, they let him in. And she made him chocolate chip cookies. What? I said to her, what? Oh, so sweet. Nice people. Here is the thing. We have to really think logically about what that entails. So when somebody online said, oh, hey, they're doing that here too, and I've heard about that, think about the big picture of this. These insurance companies, like the one I use, is 146 years old. There are companies that are 200 years old. These companies have been established. Did somebody have to help establish them? Absolutely. Would have it been me? No. These companies already know their risk tolerance. They already have an underwriter that knows, and an actuary that knows this person is going to need this expensive of insurance because of the risk. We're going to need X amount of years to make this return. So if they're likely to die within X amount of years, we need to charge more. This has been in process for hundreds of years. And we think that we're going to be able to do that. And then we're not going to sell it off. If you are the client, why don't you just go buy a life insurance with an existing company that already has the footprint? They already have the underwriters and the actuaries that know what they're doing. They already have the people in the finance department that knows exactly where all of this money is supposed to go and where it should be invested and what they should invest in. Here's an example. When I talk to the finance department at the company at One America that I use, it was interesting when they said their real estate, they like to lend money for real estate. It needs to have a 60% equity, so they'll lend up to 40%. And they like strip malls, preferably ones that have a grocery store in them, because that means that the likelihood of them being 100% vacant are pretty minimal, right? People always need to eat. The grocery store is always going to survive. That clothing store? Yeah, probably not. The boutique? Yeah, probably not. So these people already, this is their job. They already know what this is supposed to be. So if it was a new company starting, I would be asking all these really hard questions. Who's in charge of finance? Who's the actuary? Who's the head underwriter? Where are these people educated? How do they know all of this stuff? How are we going to mitigate risk? What are the dividends going to be like? Who are you going to sell out to? Who is the board of directors? Who is the CEO of the company? Instead, we have somebody that's trying to sell life insurance and they don't even have an illustration. They just have numbers on a piece of paper, and those numbers don't add up. And so we just have to be smart about it. I talked to somebody the other day too that was saying, hey, Mary Jo, I am starting like a REIT type thing. So a REIT is you give money to this company and then they manage, they build apartment buildings. They manage the apartment buildings. They make money off the apartment buildings and they give it back. Well, this gentleman is saying, hey, I want to do that with farm ground. And I'm like, I don't understand how that makes sense with farm ground. So it's very much like the people out there, and he has great intentions. I have no quarrel about his heart and his intentions. I got really good vibes from him. It's a matter of saying that might fit a very small percentage of farmers who want to turn their land over and have somebody else own the title of that land. Like, who's going to do that? Most people are not going to do that. That is not what's saving our farm. Why would I give ownership to somebody that doesn't know anything about farming? What is the cash rent going to be? What do all of those numbers look like? Is there some history that we've done this works, under what scenario does this work, all that good stuff. And so he did give me a scenario that sort of made sense. And I was like, well, I can see where that makes sense in that scenario. But that is going to be a small percentage of people. People that actually own the ground, that are farming the ground and want to hand the ground off to their heirs, I don't see how this is going to make sense. There are just a lot of people out there right now that are saying, oh, hey, I can do this infinite banking thing, or I can do this farming without the bank thing, or I can start my own life insurance policy, or whatever. This is why this industry and others, it's not just this industry, but this industry in particular really gets hit hard, I feel like, with slimy salesmen, people that just are like, oh, I know how to do this. No, you don't. Because I see people that are coming with policies that are incorrect. I had a gentleman last week that had 3 policies that were supposed to be infinite banking policies, 3 policies set up by 2 different agents. He had no idea how his policy was structured. He had no idea what payment goes to where in the policy. I said, well, why does your payment end at 5 years? Why can you only put money to the paid up additions for 5 years? He did not know. He was built a 1090 policy. So we are now 6 years in and he's like, hey, I'm going to have money I need to put somewhere. Well, we're starting another policy. So in my opinion, the only person that makes money on that deal is me, the agent, because I get commission again. So why wouldn't I set up a policy that you can put money in for 15 years, 20 years, your entire life if we want to structure it that way? So we're not having to start new policies all the time. This is just, it's so frustrating because one of these agents that this client had this potential client had 2 other agents. Both of those were infinite banking type policies, okay? So they were using them for infinite banking. One of them was a practitioner that I don't run the place over there. I don't agree with every practitioner on the list, okay? I'm going to be straight up honest. I just don't. There are fine guidelines between what NNI has to do and how to do that fairly. And then there was another guy that he knows infinite banking, but he's not a practitioner. And so you've got these people that are doing 1090 policies. This policy is going to mech. He has to drop the premium down. Well, what if he would have been uninsurable? Now he's starting a policy with less death benefit, more costly death benefit because he's older. When in fact, he should be able to just put money in the same house he's always been using. Why are we rebuilding the house every single time? It just does not make sense to me. Why some people do not care to teach their clients what they have. So everything that I went over with this gentleman, everything that I showed him, nobody else had ever done that. Now, am I going to pat myself on the back for that? You darn right I am. Because of the fact that I take the time to make sure that you are educated. Does everybody understand? No. Does everybody take the time to understand? No. I wish that you would. I wish that you guys would say, hey, Mary Jo, you know what? I'm going to watch the recording that you sent me. But they don't. Okay. I try my best to educate and not sell. And when you are getting sold to, when you call an agent and you say, hey, I want a policy for $50,000 a year or $10,000 a year, and nobody asks you about your finances, nobody asks you what you're doing in life, nobody has an hour to hour and a half meeting with you, how are they supposed to know? How am I supposed to know what these people are doing with this money that my structure of my policy is correct? There's more than one way to structure a policy. How do I know that? I have this new client that is a pilot. And I said, you know, or I think he asked, he's like, can you just run that without some term insurance on there? Because, you know, as a pilot, your rating isn't the best. And so I reran that without term on. And I was like, whoa, that's way better than with term on. I mean, it flip-flopped. And I don't remember what year it was. It was pretty early in the policy that the term was better. And then it flip-flopped that the one without term was better. And I'm like, wow, that's really a much better policy. That's the way I would go because of the fact that what he has going on in life, what his objectives are into the future, of what he's going to need cash for. Is it going to be more important today? Can he wait a little bit for cash because this other policy is better long term? We have to weigh all those things. If you're just calling somebody and they're selling you a life insurance policy without actually setting up a meeting, you should, as I've said, run for the hills. Okay? You just let a fire under your little behind and you just take off a running because you should be alarmed. And those of you that are not doing all of your due diligence, it's hard for me to feel sorry for you because of the position that you're in if you've gotten the wrong policy. You didn't do your due diligence. You didn't ask your agent all the questions. You didn't meet with John or myself. You just decided, hey, I want to meet with somebody local because they're local. I get that we are on the internet. I 100% understand. I get it. But if you want to make sure that your finances are done correctly, at least set up your meeting. But you're not even doing that. You're just going to somebody else and saying, oh, you know what? They're local. There's no way a local guy would lie to me. Oh, yeah, there is. There's plenty. There are plenty of those people on the internet, and there are plenty of those people locally. I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Just be aware. Do your due diligence. Make sure that you understand what you're buying. And kudos to my clients that reached out and said, hey, Mary Jo, can you look at this for us and make sure that it's right? And you know what? I had one 2 days later, I had another one. Hey, Mary Jo, my local guy is trying to sell me some life insurance. Can you just make sure that it's right? And he asked for whole life and got universal life. He's like, I didn't ask for universal life. I didn't ask for an IUL. I asked for whole life. And he got universal life. So it's so important to educate yourself. If it's something awesome, I am not going to say, hey, don't do that. If that whole life insurance deal would have been great for them, I would have told them, hey, I would contribute to that company too. That would be a fantastic idea. Because you guys know I love opportunity. I love it. But there is not always opportunity where it looks like there may be opportunity. All right. You let me know if you have questions, comments, concerns. MaryJo@withoutthebank.com. Get your book, schedule your appointment with John or I, and share the podcast. Hey, you know what? That would be fantastic if you shared the podcast with somebody you knew that was wanting to get away from the banking system. Help them out. Let them know that, hey, you know what? I've checked into this. This lady's legit. That would be super helpful for me and super helpful for them. All right, you guys, you let me know if there's anything you need. Otherwise, you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. We hope today's episode has inspired you to take control of your finances in new ways. Don't forget to check out our website, farmingwithoutthebank.com, and engage with us on our Facebook page, Farming Without the Bank. Join us next week as we smash more financial myths and empower you to accomplish your financial goals.